What were the most important offensive skill player fantasy football takeaways from the 2023 NFL Combine? It's time to break it down right here, right now. As we begin another week and another edition of Locked On Fantasy Football.
Our Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL and fantasy football for sportingnews.com. What an NFL Combine it was. Exciting to end on the offensive skill players over a couple days. We had the quarterbacks, wide receivers, and tight ends workout on Saturday, closed it off nicely with the running backs in action there on Sunday. So saving the most exciting fantasy football positions for last for sure, with the offensive skill on display there in Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. So very excited about the upcoming class of players that are going to lift production in fantasy football, have individual value that we're looking forward to in the NFL. We just want them to land in the right spots where they get the maximum use out of their amazing talent. So excited to just break those guys down. That's what we're going to do. We have the takeaways from the NFL Combine, from the fantasy football realm. We'll do that for you. I do have a story up that you can check out the takeaways from every position there. So looking through the defense as well, how the rankings might have been a little shook up there at certain positions, that including wide receiver, tight end, quarterback, and running back. We'll hit all four positions on today's show to open the week of Locked On Fantasy Football. Put a bow on the Combine. We had breaking news earlier today that Derek Carr signs with the Saints, so we'll break that down for you as well, coming up to look at what's going on there and what's up with the free agent that are still available there with the quarterback spot with Derek Carr signing in New Orleans. So a lot of good stuff coming this week as we continue your off-season scouting here on Locked On Fantasy Football. Thanks so much for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. We're free and available to you on all platforms. All right, let's dive right into the quarterbacks. Well, we drive right into them as well because we love these guys and we want to see them on the field and an NFL stadium near us as soon as possible to put up some numbers in fantasy. So we know who the headliner was at quarterback. Bryce Young, the biggest thing he did was weigh in. He was at 204 pounds. He was 5'10". Not a surprise that he's undersized, but that's how good of a prospect he is. They just look at all the passing and running and the leadership skills from Alabama. You can just see it. I mean, he made big play after big play. He won the Heisman Trophy. He leads an explosive offense, took advantage of great receivers, faced pro-style, really challenging defenses, and came through as well. So Bryce Young sits on his own. He's still going to be the number one overall pick. The question is, to whom? The Bears are picking number one. They're trying to trade out of that pick. So it could be another team coming up if they get enamored with one of these other quarterbacks. C.J. Stroud seems pretty steady for me. There's no questions here. He may not have the highest ceiling or the highest floor. I think he might be in between Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson with that, but I think he can be a fine starter of this league for many years to come. He would fit that Houston offense pretty well at number two. So C.J. Stroud, he said the ball placement was going to be awesome. He came out firing, very accurate on all the routes all over the field. Just looks very smooth and very confident. You know that from starting a lot of games at Ohio State. Ryan Day, pretty pro-style offense that translates well here from Columbus to the NFL. So all that good stuff you knew was coming from Stroud. Just makes it look easy, smooth player. The athleticism, I think it could be a little bit better, but you look at it, he can improvise. He can move just enough to extend plays. So C.J. Stroud, natural. I think he's going to be a good fit for wherever he goes. I think there's a little bit of volatility with Young and with Richardson, but you don't get that much with Stroud. I think what you see more is what you get. Now, there's that little stigma attached to the Ohio State quarterback, but I think Justin Fields kind of changed that a little bit last year as he started to put things together as a passer late once he was doing all the dynamic running. So Stroud is a way more polished passer, I think, overall than Justin Fields, and that's going to help him quite a bit in the NFL. So no worries about Stroud. Richardson, high ceiling. You look at what he did, he just threw bombs with relative ease. It just popped out of his hand. It was beautiful to see that arc and trajectory there on the practice field at Lucas Oil in the positional drills. And then he just made his own personal Olympics out of the 40-yard dash, the vertical jump, the broad jump, the short split there. He just dominated here as a runner, and he just looked like a natural athlete that has been untapped, raw, special, hasn't even started what amounts to a full regular season worth of NFL games in college. So, wow. I mean, just the upside there is there, and he could be like Trey Lance, Patrick Mahomes. That's what we're hoping for. Trey Lance turning the corner, staying healthy, and see what he can do for the 49ers. Well, sky's the limit here for Richardson. So Richardson could definitely end up as the best quarterback in this class. He could also bust. He's the boomer bust prospect here. But the athleticism, the head on his shoulders, the willingness to learn, expand, develop, that's all good news here. And he's working hard and obviously made it sure that he was going to dominate the combine with those agility drills. So if you can put in the work there to improve as a passer, as he did to stand out the combine, then you're looking at really good stuff there. Now, Will Levis, his calling card, he called out his cannon, and he made the cannon look easy. He didn't labor to throw those deep balls. They were just pop it and zip it, and it was downfield in a hurry. So good deep ball. I mean, definitely Richardson has the prettiest of them all, but Levis maybe the most effective with the intermediate to deep passes there. Can also change the touch on it to get it downfield. A decent athlete. He tried to show that a little bit more, that he can move out of the pocket and make plays when needed. And I think maybe that was for the Raiders a little bit, that he's maybe a little bit more athletic version of Mac Jones with a bigger arm for Josh McDaniels, who worked with Jones in New England. So definitely Will Levis was on point as well, doing what he had to do, was go out there and back up his talk about his arm. He certainly did that. So you're looking at 4 quarterbacks. I think they're all going to go in the top 10 picks here in some form. So I think you'll have 1, 2 for sure. I think you look at 4. The Cardinals are a bit of a wild card at 3. Someone could trade up there, but you look at the Colts at 4. And then you look at the Raiders coming up with Levis. So I think right now the Colts in the mood for Richardson. I think the Raiders probably targeting Levis here. The Texans looking at either Young or Stroud, and whoever that team trades up for, definitely looking for Young. It could be Richardson, but the Bears are in a great spot here to move that pick. You just have to convince teams that Young is a standout a little bit more than the other 3 guys to make that move. But otherwise, Texans are sitting really nicely at number 2, and so on with the Colts at 4. The Cardinals, would they think about taking a quarterback? Possibly. I think that's something on the table with Kyler Murray not supposed to return from the injury until in the middle of September at the earliest. So maybe they turn the page and think a different direction. But I think, again, Colts, Raiders, Texans, and a TBT team to trade up number 1 are probably going to end up with quarterbacks here early in the first round. Now, Hendon Hooker, he was still recovering. He was getting close here to being on the field again. So had a knee injury that ended last year, breakout season with the Tennessee Volunteers. I like his makeup. I think he's good to develop on a team behind an established starter, or say like a Minnesota Vikings. They didn't quite work it out with Kellen Mond, but someone team like that, or maybe it's the Saints here, not in that first round at number 29 with the pick acquired from the Broncos, but you stash him behind Derek Carr. If Carr doesn't work out, he could go in that direction. Maybe the Jets are targeting Hooker a little bit if they don't get the Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes to go in their favor, or Rodgers retires. So Hooker is a good day 2 selection here to go after this group of 4 quarterbacks in the first round. There, I think he's going to be able to get value. I think maybe the Panthers also look at him. They've got a couple of second-round picks here with the trade with the 49ers for Christian McCaffrey. So overall, really like Hooker as being that 5th quarterback off the board. Now, it's wide open, I think, behind him. I did like Tanner McKee quite a bit, but I'm a little bit down on him. Jaron Hall also disappointing me a little bit at the combine, but I think Hall over McKee would be the play right now for me. I do like Aiden O'Connell out of Purdue. Throws a nice ball there. He's more of a pocket passer. I think he's a career backup type. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, I think he just works hard. He's got a good head on his shoulder, smart guy, has some athleticism, makes some good plays here, and really ran well and handled himself well at the combine. So he's a guy we're looking at as a sleeper. Stetson Bennett, a little bit undersized, a little bit old, 5'11", and we know that he's on 25 going on 26 here, so that's tough, but he's a good athlete. Showed off an exceptional deep arm there, so I think he'd end up being a Brock Purdy type and a very valuable backup quarterback with some upside should he get a chance to play. And Jalen Hall, I like a lot of the passes he makes, the BYU product, but still, I think he needs to tool and kind of refine a lot of things that are there with his game. I do like some of the things, mechanics, arm, footwork, but got to put it all together to feel confident about him playing significant snaps as a quarterback. And how about Malik Cunningham? Comes from the same program. It's a little different offense now that produced Lamar Jackson, the Louisville Cardinals, but Malik Cunningham ran pretty well. Showed a lot of athleticism. I think he was Max Duggan, who was a pretty good runner. He led all the quarterbacks in the 40-yard dash who attempted it. He was okay, but I think Cunningham has a little bit more juice upside to his game that can put the ball up in the air as well. Some success. I think just Duggan, just not the same type of passer when he's going to move up to the next level. So overall, when you look at it, pretty decent quarterback class at the top. Then you're going to have to scrape a little bit for some backup potential. Hooker's the fifth guy I think that could start, but the rest of these guys need to land in a good situation there where they're plus young backups that they may play behind an off-injured veteran or a veteran that needs reevaluating here. So something to look at, much like Desmond Ridder and Sam Howell of the 2022 draft. So there you have it. There's a breakdown of the quarterback takeaways for fantasy football. A lot of upside here with Richardson, Levis, Stroud, and of course, Young, potentially returning decent fantasy football value in 2023. We'll look at the running backs. We know that's the easiest plug-and-play position for fantasy football. If there's a running back that gets a key role, what you see is what you get. He's usually going to translate the production behind good NFL offensive line with better scheming there. So we'll look at the running backs in the next segment, and we'll close looking at the wide receivers and tight ends and the takeaways there from those positions at the 2023 NFL Combine here. It is March here, and the madness is almost here, the frenzy, or whatever we want to call it. But it may have already started. With our hectic lives, we don't eat well all the time, and we struggle sometimes to eat on the go. Looking for a delicious treat, but don't want all the fat and calories, then you got to try Built Bar. Just got through the holidays, you had the resolutions in play, then you had things happen in February where you're trying to stay on track here, and then Lent came along for some of you. So I know the goal is to give up some things that are not as healthy for you overall to get better, but you don't want to compromise that taste. Then you've got to try Built. With Built, healthy is actually tasty. Seriously, they're so delicious you won't think they're good for you. It's perfect for what you're planning to do to improve yourself in the new year. What makes Built Bars so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. They come in unbelievable flavors. You can try churro, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond. I'm not sure how Built does it. These bars taste like a candy bar with amazing macros. That's right. Only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar in most bars with a whopping 70 grams of protein. Now you don't need to wait around to get a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering your Built Bars only at Built.com. Well, now you can get them somewhere else in two places, your local Walmart or Sam's Club. That's right. If you head to your nearest Walmart today, you can walk to the pharmacy section, grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. If you're close to Sam's Club, better news for you because you can get a 13-bar box there, including the hit flavors, brownie batter, and churro. You can thank me later. So check it out. Built Bar. Get them right now. Built.com and at your local Walmart and Sam's Club. All right, it is time to continue the show here on Locked on Fantasy Football. We're looking at the takeaways from all the offensive skill positions at the 2023 NFL Combine. We talked about the quarterbacks. Now it's time to turn attention to the running backs. How about Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs? Bijan wanted to do all the drills, even though he's clearly been the number one running back prospect. He's been like this for multiple seasons, playing for the University of Texas. Maybe you knew Jahmyr Gibbs was going to put up some numbers, but Robinson 4.46 in the 40 ran well, did all the other tests well, very athletic, very three-down capable, strong, can hold up for that workload as well. So Bijan Robinson did everything to prove that he should be a high draft pick as a complete feature back. And Jahmyr Gibbs, there was a couple question marks about him, but he showed a nice compact frame. He showed excellent receiving skills as well. So a little bit better of that change of pace style than Robinson is, but both backs can hold up over 3 downs. So I think Jahmyr Gibbs has worked himself into the first round, depending on how the team shake out the pick. But right now, Bijan Robinson should be appealing to the Lions. I think the Cowboys should be into both of these guys and just move on from Ezekiel Elliott to Tony Pollard. So I just think sometimes the first round talent is there with these running backs. You can say, okay, avoid them and do that, but sometimes you need it. Najee Harris a couple of years ago for the Steelers had an impact as a rookie. Saquon, we know, came on strong. Then he was a key part of what they were doing last year. Christian McCaffrey, what his upside and talent can be when he's on point and healthy, and he carried the team of the 49ers down the stretch last year. So we've seen these running backs have an impact in the right system with the right support and with the right volume. And Robinson and Gibbs totally fall into that. So Robinson is going to be an immediate plug-and-play RB1, I think, because he's going to get that key touch factor of 20-plus there for his team. Jahmyr Gibbs, at least at RB2, getting 15-plus touches per game. I think that's what you're going to get from the two running backs. Again, Gibbs is a little bit better pass catcher. I think Robinson's a better overall power back, but they're both good at the other aspect as well. So excited about these two guys coming to the league. I think it's the best 1-2 punch in quite a while. They're going to have immediate boost for fantasy football, and definitely both worthy of being drafted. Okay, we'll move on from those two guys. Then the rest is more situational. Devin Achane from Texas A&M, the fastest 40. He's very good. Very good speed back, change of pace, so he's got to be in that type of role. Zach Charbonnet is more of a power back. Didn't measure as heavy as expected, but Charbonnet transferred from Michigan to UCLA. We know Michigan was into that type of back with Hassan Haskins, so that type of back, compact, can put up the numbers there. So Zach Charbonnet in a good spot. Tyjae Spears out of Tulane is some guy we can watch as well, being a nice back that can do a lot of things well on the field. So excited about that. Chase Brown tested really well with his agility out of Illinois, so he should be moving up the boards. Kenny McIntosh, not as good that we've seen as James Cook as the change of pace back out of Georgia. So something to pay attention there. McIntosh is more of a late round flyer than the impact that Cook could have there with the Bills or another team going forward. Tank Bigsby is a power back, as you would expect with his first name. Interesting back, but I think you look at maybe some limitations, maybe too powerful as a back. Maybe he's a good complement to, say, a Rashad White there, replacing Leonard Fournette in Tampa. So something to look there. Zach Evans, another good change of pace. Seems like guys named Evans are always like that. We know Chris Evans from the Bengals. But, another change of pace for receiving back. So it's really finding those guys outside Robinson, Gibbs, those clear-cut three-down workhorse types who can do everything well, plug and play behind a strong offensive line. You're set. They're going to be very productive in reality and fantasy for their teams. With the rest, a little bit more piecemeal, figuring it out by committee, having to land in the right spots here. So not indifferent from a lot of draft classes we've seen, but Robinson, Gibbs, we're going to definitely circle where they land because they're going to see an immediate feature-like role here in the NFL wherever they go, and that's the team that will target them. So right now I have Robinson going to the Lions, maybe cleaning up that mess between free agent Jamal Williams and off-injured DeAndre Swift. And Gibbs, again, going to the Cowboys right now for me, saying, okay, he can do a lot of the Tony Pollard stuff, but he can also give you the Zeke Elliott stuff here, an aging guy with a heavy contract. So we'll see what Jerry Jones does there. But those are the two best spots right now. The Eagles are another one they're picking right before the Chiefs as a penultimate pick in round one. They're also looking at Miles Sanders and Boston Scott being a free agent, so they might lean to one of these backs as well to clean up their backfield in 2023. All right, there you have a look at the key takeaways there and how it kind of sorts out in that quarterback and running back class here. For those positions, we will close looking at wide receiver and tight end, the latest developments from the NFL Combine. Don't forget about the Locked On NFL show here, covering all the good stuff around the league, free agency news, draft news, analysis, predictions, all that good stuff, all throughout the offseason, much like Locked On Fantasy Football, getting you in offseason mode and keep bringing it to you ahead of next season. So good stuff there, Locked On NFL. Check it out here on the network with our revolving door of hosts and guests that are going to bring you the insight you need of the hottest topics all around the NFL. All right, it is time to close the show looking at what happened with the wide receivers and tight ends in Indianapolis, our fantasy football related takeaways from the 2023 NFL Scouting Combine. Jordan Addison didn't run all that fast. He was the consensus top wide receiver for me, but I think his technical abilities, the way he can get open, kind of a possession guy inside. He was a Blitnikoff winner there at Pittsburgh. Very technical, smooth receiver. I think that's what the Texans need here. They need a guy that's going to get open all over the field, much like DeAndre Hopkins did, guy that they could trust with their quarterback in any situation. So I think Jordan Addison's still a good fit at number 12 to the Texans in the draft. I don't know if he's the best overall upside receiver in this draft that I would say, okay, he's the best clear cut. But I think for the Texans' needs right now, Addison would be great. I think Jackson Smith-Njigba made a very strong case to be the next wide receiver off the board. Again, it's really about what the team needs, right? I have the Jets going Quentin Johnson because they need to replace Corey Davis is a big, tall, lanky guy. They already had their true number one with Garrett Wilson, the first rounder last year. You had Quentin Johnson to that. He's a field stretcher, can play off that. With Smith-Njigba, I think he's a bit versatile. He can play the slot. I have him going right now to the Chargers there in the first round. I think the Chargers might be more in the market for an offensive playmaker than we think. But Smith-Njigba can line up anywhere. He can work the slot and can outside. A lot of versatility like Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave showed last year out of the Ohio State program. So really like Smith-Njigba here climbing up the charts. Showed that he was healthy. The hamstring was an issue. Didn't run the 40, but really ran well in positional drills and caught everything just like we'd seen for the good chunk of his best days in Columbus for the Buckeyes with C.J. Stroud. So excited to see Smith-Njigba back in action, making plays. Quentin Johnson, again, can take the top off of defense. He either run his 40, but he doesn't have to. He's got great size, great speed on the outside. He's a good field stretcher, looked very good in the positional drills as well. So in some order, I think it'll be Addison, Smith-Njigba, and Johnson coming off the board, depending on those team needs there and team-specific style of receivers needed for that first round. All right, who else could go in the first round? How about Zay Flowers of Boston College? He's drawn a lot of comparisons to Tyler Lockett. He's basically the same size, same type of receiver, can work the slot, pretty tough, can also get downfield, outside. So Zay Flowers definitely getting a lot of buzz here as maybe that fourth wide receiver who could go on the board if someone's interested, but he definitely has that first round ability here as a smaller receiver. The league has been trending to these smaller receivers, right? I mean, sometimes you have these massive guys like Devontae Adams and Mike Evans, but you also see Tyreek Hill being effective, Jalen Waddle, both on the same team here. So Zay Flowers has that appeal out of Boston College to catch a little bit of everything and be very active in making plays here. So do like Zay Flowers quite a bit. He did himself a lot of favors with his combine performance. Rashee Rice has got nice size at a big possession receiver out of SMU. I think right now he'd be a good fit in a lot of offenses as kind of a number two possession versus number two stretch of field type of guy. So Rashee Rice kind of established himself niche. I think Smith-Njigba has a bit of a rival there in Kayshon Boutte, very similar receivers. Boutte can line up anywhere. The LSU product, whether it's outside or inside. So versatility there, route running, you can fit in most offenses. Josh Downs, a little crossover gadget player, but a little mighty might who can fly here out of North Carolina. So really like his potential here. A lot of landing spots for him, if not Flowers there that could work in late for first round. You can look at Downs maybe cutting in there for offenses like the Chargers or the Seahawks and being effective for sure as a versatile pass catcher. Now, Jalen Hyatt, I'd like to see him go to a team like the Giants where he can stretch the field, make some big plays. Hyatt could get in the back end first round conversation, the big play receiver out of Tennessee who played with Hendon Hooker. So again, Hyatt just takes the top off of defenses here. Very fast, home run hitter. He's like the alternative to Johnson. If you can't get him in the first round, you can look to Hyatt in the late first or the early second round. And finally, let's look at the tight ends, and we're going to talk about four of them. Michael Mayer, not too great with the athletic part of the workout. He was very good with the positional drills. He showed he's a strong guy that could block really well. Very good all-around inline tight end. Here, not going to be sudden with the domination downfield, but he's going to give you a lot more assets in the running game and helping in the blocking area as well. So looking at that, Michael Mayer still holding on, but Dalton Kincaid closing the gap here as the top two tight ends of the board. Kincaid could not work out of the combine because of dealing with a back issue. Kincaid extremely athletic. He's not getting with the blocking ability as Mayer, but he can make some big plays. So I do have Kincaid on the radar for the Chargers there, another team, or the Bengals. They need that type of receiver as they got some blocking types and all that, but Mayer's the more complete tight end. He should go first off the board. I have him going to the Packers. They're in the middle of the first round. I think that would be an ideal fit with Robert Tonyan, their top receiver, as well as Mercedes Lewis, their longtime veteran blocker as free agents. Don't forget about Luke Musgrave. He's looked pretty good. He's started to get healthy here, so that's a guy we're going to watch out for the plus athleticism. I don't think you'll see three tight ends go in the first round, but maybe Mayer gets pushed down a little bit because Kincaid and Musgrave stand out a little bit more with their pop and quickness there on the field. But again, Mayer's going to give you that complete package. So Musgrave, some player we're looking at that will have some impact. And then finally, a lot of size and a lot of ability here. He's pretty raw. Darnell Washington out of Georgia, 6'7", just an imposing figure that can really put it all together. He can be a dominant force. He kind of reminds me on the field of Jeremy Stevens. Remember him out of Washington? Didn't quite work out there in the NFL. came out with different possibilities here. But Darnell Washington, big guy, good system in Georgia. They used him quite a bit in the right spots here. So I think his role could expand as a receiver in the NFL. That's going to have definitely some fantasy appeal if they can get that 6'7" frame work and use him as well in the red zone. So there you have it. There's a look at the key takeaways there from the offensive skill positions: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end from the 2023 NFL Draft. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. Tomorrow we'll break down what it means. And Derek Carr signed with the Saints, so check that out. Here we'll have reaction to that here and see what that means for their offense, what it means for quarterbacks, all the trickle-down effects there of that move early in the offseason for a quarterback by New Orleans. Now make your second listen to Locked On NFL Draft. Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez provide in-depth analysis of the biggest NFL draft prospects with deep dives into sleepers and new gems that can change your favorite NFL franchise. Coming right off the combine. Find Locked On NFL Draft wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of Locked On Podcasts Network, your team every day. For Locked On Fantasy Football, this has been Vinnie Iyer. Thanks again for listening, and we'll check you out there tomorrow looking at the Saints with Derek Carr.